Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Tom, and I'm here with Michelle Farias. She's a licensed professional counselor. Hello, Michelle. Welcome.
Hi, Tom. Thank you.
So, how do you respond to someone's worry? In other words, if somebody's having an anxious thought at that particular moment, how do you respond to that?
This is a tricky question because our instinct is to want to make them feel better. We want to reassure them and we want to tell them, don't worry about it. It's all going to work out. So if somebody comes and they say, I'm worried about a project that's due tomorrow, then our logical response is to say, well, you've worked on it. You know what you're doing. I wouldn't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And we're just reassuring them. We're trying to get rid of their worry. Now, this is okay if you're working with somebody who just occasionally has a worry. But if you're working with somebody who's anxious all of the time, this response will actually support the anxiety and make it get bigger. So we don't want to focus on a specific thing that an anxious person is worried about, because then it's like playing whack-a-mole, where you take care of one worry and then another one's going to pop up. What we want to do is respond differently. And when we focus on the actual worry, we're talking about focusing on the content. We want to look at the process. We want to look at how worry works for somebody who's anxious. So we're going to focus on the process.
Okay, so then what are the things to avoid?
Well, if you want to avoid focusing on the content, you're not going to talk about the specific problem. You're not going to try to get rid of worry or reassure about the worry. You don't want to be logical because anxiety is not logical. So if somebody is afraid that if they step out of the front door, they might trip and fall. Well, logically, we would say, well, you've been walking for a long time. You know how to step out of the front door. It's going to be okay. Anxiety doesn't respond well to logic. So you don't even want to talk about that specific thing. We don't want to tell them, just don't think about it. That doesn't work. That's called thought stopping. And the thought is still there. We don't want to just eliminate it or try to distract them or tell them to just breathe. That's focusing on the content. We are going to focus on the process of their worry.
Okay, so then what would be examples of some helpful responses?
Ultimately, when you're talking about an anxious person, and we're just talking about people who struggle with anxiety, what they worry about does not matter because they're going to worry about a lot of different things. What matters is how they handle worry when it shows up or how they handle anxiety when it shows up. So we want to expect it to show up. If somebody comes to you and says, I'm worried about this thing that's going to be happening in the future, then your response is, of course you're worried. Everybody would be worried. That's a normal response. So we're expecting it to show up. Then we're going to externalize it, meaning we're going to, if you can imagine, physically pulling that worried thought out of the brain. And we're going to treat it like a separate person. And we're going to talk to it. And we're going to say, I understand that you're here. You're trying to keep me safe and protected. But I'm still going to go forward and do what it is that I want to do. I even have people name their worry. So if your worry's Bob, it's like, okay, Bob, here you are again. We were expecting you, but we're not listening to you today because I still want to go meet with my friends. So Bob, you're just going to have to be okay with me going on and do what I want to do. And then we want to experiment. So we're talking to Bob. We're still stepping out. We're going to meet with our friends. We're still moving forward and do what we want to do. We're just not going to let Bob keep us hostage.
So let me see if I've got this right. So what you're really saying is don't focus so much on the thing that they're worried about, but rather...
Yeah, you're focusing on the process. Again, what we worry about does not matter. And this is for somebody who's anxious and who worries all the time. What matters is how we respond to the worry when it shows up. So we're going to expect it to show up. Of course you're worried. We're going to externalize it. Here you are again, Bob, as always. And we're going to experiment. Bob, I know you want me to be safe, but I'm still going to do what I want to do. I'm still going to move forward and live my life. What we want to do is we want to tolerate not knowing. We want to learn the skill of living with discomfort. Anxiety demands certainty and comfort, and we're learning to be okay with not knowing. Because when we don't know something and we still do what we want to do, as long as it's something that's safe, then we're not letting anxiety win. We're still living our lives.
Okay, wow, well that's difficult sometimes to do, to be okay with uncertainty.
Yeah, it's a difficult thing to do, but it's our response to anxiety that will help us move forward, because we're retraining the brain. We're learning different ways of responding to anxiety. And the more we do it, the easier it gets, and it just becomes more natural for us.
Okay, so if you or someone you love is struggling with anxiety, be sure to contact your own mental health care provider, or
you can contact me, michellefarias.com. You can contact me through my website or call me at 210-926-9535, and I'll be happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, thanks, Michelle.
Thank you, Tom.